Pete Buttigieg is probably the best surrogate out there. Buttigieg, Newsom, and then you drop off a bit in terms of power. I think those two are just real money. So as Buttigieg flies into enemy territory on Fox News Channel, he is undaunted. He is remarkable in his ability to beat back the arsonists that are, the political arsonists that are Fox News Channel, and at least get some real information out there. I've got two different clips. Thanks again, Randy, for turning me on to it. Here is Pete Buttigieg toward the beginning, and I'll play you another one, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
That's the real reason I think she's going to win, is that most Americans already agree with her on the issues that they care about the most, that affect them the most, whether we're talking about choice and her stance on defending a woman's right to choose versus Donald Trump, who eliminated a right to choose in this country.
Well, he sent it back to the states, to be fair.
Let's be very clear. He is proud of the fact that he demolished the national right to choose in this country, period.
But there are states that are figuring this out. I mean, there are some that are, I mean, it's nearly impossible, a 6-week ban or less. But there are others, there are states in this country that allow no restrictions up until the due date of a child.
There was a national right to choose in this country, law of the land, for 50 years, which the vast majority of Americans believed was the right thing to do. But Donald Trump made a promise when he was a candidate, one of the few promises he actually kept, by the way. You know, he didn't keep his promise of 6% economic growth. He didn't keep his promise to drain the swamp.
He did have a pandemic to deal with.
But even before the pandemic, America went into a manufacturing recession, which really hurt places like where I come from in the industrial Midwest. But anyway, my point is, he broke his promise for that kind of economic growth. He broke his promise to pass an infrastructure bill, right? He said he would do that. He failed to do it. The Biden-Harris administration got it done. He even broke his promise to that January 6th mob when he said, I will be at your side when you march down to the Capitol. But he actually did keep two promises. He kept his promise to destroy the right to choose in this country, and he kept his promise on tax cuts for the rich. And if you want to know what a second Trump term would be like, I would start by looking at those rare promises that he actually managed to keep.
He did say that he wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade, but again, send it to the states where they are hashing this out
empower the states to eliminate women's access to abortion. And also, as you know, the Republican Party continues to be interested in a national abortion ban.
Which he's disavowed completely.
Yeah, he's disavowed a lot of things. I don't believe him. Because he lies all the time.
You think that his pledge that he would not pass a national ban is one that
it's one that's going to go down with most of the promises that he's made and broken.
Let's talk about this, though, since we're still
I think that's great. Okay, that'll give you a sense of just the way in which he dismantles the history and makes it clear who this guy is, Trump. Now, we know that Trump really is the empty vessel who is charismatic, con man, gets out there and sells it. But when you get somebody like Buttigieg on there to sort of dismantle what he's actually done and what the plans are for a continued effort during a Trump term, the second time, it really exposes a lot. So the interview continued, and there was one other part that I thought he was particularly, I mean, he's good throughout, but just in the interest of time, here's the second little piece that I thought was worth taking a look at. Pete Buttigieg from Sunday.
The fact is that Joe Biden is good at being president. You can tell by the results that he's getting, results that Donald Trump tried and failed to get, right? Trump tried and failed to get the kind of job growth that Joe Biden has presided over. Trump tried and failed to get an infrastructure bill done. So at the end of the day, you judge a president's effectiveness based on the job that they're doing. And that's what we've seen. Now, the president made an extraordinary, historic, selfless choice to take himself out of the nominating process and concentrate 100% on the presidency. I think that was the right choice. I know he's going to want to sprint through the tape in terms of the work of the presidency. Meanwhile, we have a new nominee.
And was she aware of how he was doing?
We're all
listening. The point he was trying to make, and it's an important one, is the distinction essentially between...
watched our president lead.
Go ahead.
And yes, we've also seen the fact that he's 10 years older than he was 10 years ago. But unlike Republicans, right, who in Trump's personality cult will take a look at Donald Trump and say he's perfectly fine, even though he seemed unable to tell the difference between Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi, even though he's rambling about electrocuting sharks and Hannibal Lecter, even though he is clearly older and stranger than he was when America first got to know him. They say he's strong as an ox, leaps tall buildings in a single bound.
Well,
we don't have that kind of warped reality on our side.
Well,
and on the contrary, the president confronted that reality in what must have been one of the most difficult decisions for an American president to make ever. And he did something that I don't think Donald Trump could even conceive of doing, which is putting his own interests aside for the country.
Well, voters have said that they are much less worried about the mental acuity and the physical strength of President Trump. They see
compared
them,
to Biden or compared to Harris? I'm pretty sure voters are worried about the age and acuity of President Trump compared to Kamala Harris, who represents being a generation younger. And how could anybody not?
I thought it was great. They try to go back to the old poll where they go, well, between Trump and Biden, people felt that, no, it's not between Trump and Biden anymore. It's between Trump and Kamala Harris. So thank you, Randy. That was a very good run. Buttigieg, as I say, is their very best surrogate. I think Gavin Newsom is a very good surrogate as well because he's not afraid to go in behind enemy lines, just as you've seen Pete Buttigieg do it. And he, I think, is, again, very effective in turning back their arguments. One of the best orators currently in the Democratic Party. I think that's right. He's very, very strong. Donald Trump has been dusting off a lot of BS, and he dusted off more of it. He revives the false claim that he deployed the National Guard to Minneapolis in 2020. That is not true. Handling the civil unrest after the George Floyd thing, remember, in Minneapolis. Tim Walz, who's the Democratic governor there in Minnesota, also supposedly on the list from Vice President Kamala Harris for running mate, potentially. Trump said every voter in Minnesota needs to know that when the violent mobs of anarchists and looters and Marxists came down to burn Minneapolis 4 years ago, remember me? I couldn't get your governor to act. He's supposed to call in the National Guard or the Army, and he didn't do it. I couldn't get your governor, so I sent the National Guard in to save Minneapolis. Trump went on to criticize Kamala Harris for her own response to the unrest. Well, of course, he's repeated this on multiple occasions, including a version during the presidential debate with Joe Biden. Trump's claim that he sent the National Guard to Minneapolis in 2020 and that Walz refused to do so are both wrong. It was Walz, not Trump, who sent the National Guard into Minnesota. And Walz first deployed the Guard more than 7 hours before Trump publicly threatened to deploy the Guard himself. They were already deployed. The Minnesota National Guard, the entity that Walz deployed, is under the command of the governor, not the president. This is something that you should be all too familiar with, as they talked about Trump in his role as president, talking about putting the National Guard on the streets of America in so many different states. They oftentimes spoke of it to remind us that governors control National Guard. Presidents do not. Now, the president has the power to federalize Guard troops under certain circumstances, but Trump never did that. So he's been out there with this false story, and it's very consistent. It's very Trumpian. After the false story in June of 2020, Walt's spokesperson made it clear and made the evidence clear to everyone that Waltz called out the National Guard, and hours before it was even on the radar of the White House. So Trump's claim, false. He continues it along with the bulldozer of other lies that he brings to most of his campaign stops. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.